Justin Coleman was standing in my office doorway with that smile. 31 years old, MBA from Northwestern, dress shirt that had never seen a drop of machine oil. The kind of guy who'd been told he was exceptional so many times he actually believed it. 3 weeks earlier, he couldn't tell you the difference between a bearing tolerance spec and a maintenance schedule. Today he was VP of Engineering at Briggs Coleman Industrial Systems, a $285 million company I'd built from nothing. 16 years of my life, and I was supposed to report to him. I looked at him standing there. I looked at the office I'd worked out of since 2008. I looked at the safe behind my desk, the one nobody else had the combination to. Then I said, "No, Justin. I'm not handing over anything." His smile flickered. I walked to the safe, turned the dial, reached in, and pulled out a single document. Not a blueprint, not a technical drawing, a legal filing. 3 words at the top that Justin Coleman had no idea existed until that moment. Patent pending, application filed. The color drained out of his face like someone pulled a plug. And somewhere down the hall, his father Gary's phone started ringing with calls that wouldn't stop for the next 20 hours. "My name is Marshall Briggs. I'm 48 years old. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, served 6 years in the Navy, and spent 16 years building something from nothing. This is the story of how I took it back." Let me start at the beginning, because that's where the real story is. My dad worked the line at Jeep for 30 years, came home every night with grease under his fingernails and that quiet kind of respect that men who build things with their hands carry around without ever talking about it. He didn't push me toward engineering. He didn't push me toward anything. He just showed up every day, did the work, and let the work speak for itself. That was the only lesson he ever taught me, and it turned out to be the only one I needed. I joined the Navy at 18, spent 6 years working on nuclear submarine systems in the Pacific Fleet. USS Connecticut, fast attack sub, the kind of environment where precision isn't just important, it's the difference between coming home and becoming a memorial plaque. You learn to check everything twice, document everything, and never assume the guy before you did his job. Right, nuclear reactors don't tolerate amateur hour. Neither do torpedo tubes. Neither do the hydraulic systems that keep 150 men alive 300 feet underwater. I was an electronics technician, submarine qualified, responsible for navigation systems and sonar arrays. The work taught me something civilian engineers never learn. When you're designing a system, you're not just solving a problem, you're betting lives that your solution works under pressure. Every circuit I touched, every component I tested, every repair I made had to be perfect because imperfect meant dead. That mindset followed me everywhere after. I carried it into every job, every relationship, every decision I made. You do the work right, you document the work, and you stand behind what you build. No shortcuts, no assumptions, no hoping someone else will catch your mistakes. Got out in '98, used the GI Bill for mechanical engineering at Toledo University. Graduated at 26, spent the next 10 years working for other people's companies, designing systems that made other people rich. I was good at it. Not good in a way that showed up at company parties or got me mentioned in trade publications. Good in the way that matters. When something broke at 2 in the morning, I was the one they called. When a client's production line was hemorrhaging money because the automation specs were wrong, I was the one who fixed it. I kept detailed logs of every system I worked on, every modification I made, every improvement I suggested. Old Navy habit. Document everything because memory fails, and documentation saves lives. Or in the civilian world, saves companies millions when they need to prove what went wrong and how to fix it. By the time I was 36, I had ideas that went further than my employers were willing to go. I'd developed the concept for a predictive maintenance AI system that could monitor aging industrial equipment and prevent catastrophic failures before they happened. The engineering was based on submarine fault detection systems adapted for steel mills and automotive plants. The system could analyze vibration patterns, temperature fluctuations, and electrical draw to predict equipment failure 72 hours before it happened. The kind of solution that would save a mid-sized steel mill $600,000 to $800,000 a year in downtime costs. More importantly, it would prevent the kind of catastrophic failure that kills workers and destroys facilities. I'd seen that kind of failure once early in my civilian career. Plant explosion in Youngstown, 1999. 3 men dead because someone ignored the warning signs on a pressure vessel. The investigation found 14 separate indicators that the system was failing. 14 chances to prevent what happened. Nobody was monitoring the right parameters. Nobody understood what the data was telling them. I swore I'd never let that happen again if I could prevent it. The technology existed. The sensors existed. What was missing was a system smart enough to interpret the data and sound the alarm before metal fatigue became metal failure. The engineering was solid. I'd run the calculations 100 times at my kitchen table after my wife and kids went to sleep. I had the submarine experience to understand system redundancy and fail-safe design. I had the civilian experience to understand industrial applications. What I didn't have was capital, clients, and the patience for sales calls. That's where Gary Coleman came in. We met at a manufacturing expo in Detroit in 2007. Mutual contact introduced us over bad convention center coffee. Gary was 45 then, silver-haired. The kind of man who made you feel like you were the most interesting person in the room when he focused on you. He'd made his money in commercial development and was looking to pivot into industrial services. He saw what I had. I saw what he had. We sat at a diner for 3 hours, ordered coffee twice, and by the time the check came, we had the bones of a partnership. 50-50. He handles clients, capital, and contracts. I handle engineering, design, and every technical decision. Neither of us pretends to do the other's job. We signed the partnership agreement in early 2008, 2 copies notarized, drafted by a lawyer downtown. Simple language, no fancy terms, just 2 men agreeing to build something together and spelling out exactly what belonged to whom. Section 7 was my attorney's idea. She said, "Marshall, if this partnership ever goes sideways, you need to know that your designs are yours, not the company's. The company gets a license to use them. That license can be revoked if your role is diminished without your consent." I signed it without thinking much about it. I wasn't planning for the partnership to go sideways. I was planning to build something. I put my copy in a fireproof box in the garage. Later, it moved to the safe in my office. For 15 years, I didn't look at it once. I was too busy building. The first 5 years were exactly what Gary promised. Total consumption. We raised initial capital through Gary's network, leased a 45,000 square foot facility outside Toledo, and hired our first 8 engineers. I designed our core product line from scratch. 3 systems. A predictive maintenance AI platform that could analyze vibration patterns and temperature fluctuations to predict equipment failure 72 hours before it happened. A modular conveyor integration system that could retrofit aging production lines without tearing everything out and starting over. And a thermal calibration network for precision steel processing. I built these systems the way the Navy taught me to build everything. Multiple redundancies, fail-safe protocols, documentation for every component and every decision. When you're responsible for keeping men alive underwater, you don't cut corners. When you're responsible for keeping industrial workers safe on the factory floor, the principle is the same, that predictive maintenance systems saved lives. I know this because our clients told me. A steel mill in Youngstown avoided a catastrophic pressure vessel failure because our sensors detected microfractures in the containment housing 68 hours before critical failure. The plant manager called me personally. "Marshall, your system just saved 3 lives and probably my job." That's when you know you've built something that matters. The thermal calibration network became our signature. Competitors spent years trying to reverse engineer it. None of them got it right because they never had the original drawings. Those were in my safe, along with every modification, every improvement, every lesson learned from 16 years of field testing. By year 5, we had 95 employees and $52 million in annual revenue. By year 10, we'd expanded into Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Indiana. Steel mills, auto assembly lines, heavy manufacturing plants. Companies that had been running the same equipment for 25 years started calling us because a competitor had upgraded and suddenly they were losing contracts. We were the ones who came in, assessed the floor, and built a solution that worked inside their existing infrastructure instead of blowing it up and starting over. That was the pitch. That was always the pitch. And it worked because the engineering behind it was genuinely superior. Gary was good at his job. I want to be fair about that. He could walk into a plant manager's office, read the room in about 30 seconds, and have the man nodding along inside of 10 minutes. He understood relationships, timing, and when to push and when to wait. Those are real skills. They're just not the skills that make a machine run. But Gary understood something I didn't want to admit at the time. He understood that relationships with clients were built on trust, and trust was built on consistency. Not just technical consistency, but personal consistency. Showing up when you said you would. Returning calls within 4 hours. Remembering the plant manager's wife's name and asking about his son's college football career. I was excellent at the technical side. I could diagnose a system failure over the phone, design a solution on a napkin, and have it implemented within 48 hours. What I was not excellent at was remembering birthdays, holiday cards, and the kind of social maintenance that keeps business relationships healthy over 15 years. Gary handled all of that. He maintained the relationships that brought us the contracts that funded the engineering that built the systems that saved the lives. It was a partnership in the truest sense, even if I didn't fully appreciate his contribution until much later. By year 12, revenue was at $185 million. By year 15, $260 million. By year 16, Theo's in $285 million and 285 employees. Offices in Toledo, Detroit, and Pittsburgh. I was still on the floor twice a week, still reviewing every major system design before it shipped. Still the guy the engineers called at 11 p.m. when something wasn't holding tolerance. The work consumed everything. I was in the office by 6:30 every morning, rarely home before 8 p.m. Weekends were spent troubleshooting client issues or reviewing design specifications for Monday morning meetings. I told myself it was necessary, that this was what building something real required. My marriage didn't survive it. I'll be straight about that. By year 9, my wife Diana had stopped waiting up. She wasn't wrong to leave. I chose the work every time there was a choice to make, and eventually she stopped offering me the choice. The divorce was civilized. Deanna kept the house. I kept the company stock. She remarried a year later, a good man who's home by 6 p.m. and doesn't carry a work phone. I was happy for her. Genuinely. She deserved someone who could be present for the life they were building together. My son Lucas was 16 when she moved out. He lived with her through high school, came to work summers with me during trade school, and ended up in the electrical union himself. He's 24 now, makes good money, has his own apartment, and understands something about his old man that took me years to understand myself. Last summer, he came to the plant with me on a Saturday morning. We walked the floor together, just the two of us, machines quiet, light coming in low through the shop windows. He stopped at the thermal calibration line and put his hand on the housing the way I'd taught him to check for vibration irregularities. He said, "You built all this, didn't you? Not just designed it, actually built it with your own hands." I said, "Every bolt, every calibration, every line of code." From the first sketch to the final commissioning, he nodded slowly. The kind of nod that means someone's putting together something it took them a long time to figure out. That's why you couldn't be home. This wasn't just a job. This was like building a cathedral, something like that. And now they want to hand it over to some kid who's never turned a wrench in his life. Something like that. We didn't say anything else for a while. Didn't need to. Lucas understood what Gary Coleman was about to learn the hard way. You can promote whoever you want to whatever title makes you feel good, but the cathedral belongs to the man who laid every stone. Justin Coleman joined the company in year 15. Gary came to me directly. "Marshall, I'd like to bring Justin in on the project management side. Let him learn how things work from the ground up. He's been out of school 3 years. He needs real experience." I said, "Fine. Put him in client implementation. Give him a supervisor. Keep him away from anything technical until he's proven he can handle it." For the first few months, Justin was adequate. He showed up on time, dressed well, handled scheduling without major incidents. Clients liked him because he was young and confident and reminded them of their own sons. He had that Northwestern MBA polish, the kind that impresses people in conference rooms, even when there's nothing substantial behind it. But the moment any conversation turned technical, he was lost. I watched him sit through engineering reviews, nodding along like he was following every word. He wasn't. I could tell by the questions he asked afterward, or rather, the questions he didn't ask. When Roger Hayes, our senior mechanical engineer, was explaining the thermal calibration protocol for a new steel mill installation, Justin would nod seriously and take notes. But afterward, he'd ask me things like, "Why can't we just use the standard temperature settings?" It was like asking why we couldn't use the same prescription glasses for everyone. I documented his performance gaps twice, mentioned it to Gary once. Gary said, "Give him time, Marshall. He'll grow into it." What he grew into was a sense of entitlement that got wider every month. By month 6, Justin was sitting in on executive meetings he hadn't been invited to. By month 9, he was CCing himself on client communications that had nothing to do with his role. By month 11, he was talking to trade publications about our engineering vision as if he had one, and Gary was letting it happen. The breaking point came during a client visit to our Youngstown steel mill installation. The plant manager, Tom Bradley, was walking us through their operation when one of our thermal sensors started throwing error codes. Nothing critical, but it needed immediate attention. Justin stepped forward and started explaining to Tom what the problem was. Except he had it completely wrong. He was talking about calibration drift, when the actual issue was a communication protocol mismatch between the sensor array and the central processing unit. Basic stuff, the kind of thing any first-year engineering student should understand. Tom looked confused. Roger looked embarrassed. I stepped in and corrected the diagnosis, explained the actual fix, and had our technician resolve the issue within 20 minutes. But the damage was done. Tom pulled me aside afterward. "Marshall, I've been working with you guys for 8 years. I trust your systems because I trust your expertise. But that kid," he shook his head. I don't know what he was talking about, but it wasn't anything I recognized as engineering. That night, I called Gary. "We need to talk about Justin's role." "What do you mean?" "I mean, he's representing himself as having technical authority he doesn't possess." Tom Bradley noticed. "Other clients will notice. This is going to damage our reputation." Gary was quiet for a moment, then he said, "Justin's learning, Marshall. He'll get better with experience. Gary, he's not learning engineering. He's learning to fake confidence about subjects he doesn't understand. That's not the same thing." "What are you suggesting? Move him to business development. Let him work on contracts and client relations, where his MBA actually means something. Keep him away from technical discussions until he's earned the right to have them." "I'll consider it." He didn't consider it. 3 weeks later, Justin was promoted to Assistant Vice President of Operations. Not technical operations, just operations. But the title was designed to sound important, and it worked. Justin started introducing himself to clients as Assistant VP, and clients started treating him like he had authority over technical decisions. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. I was in the parking lot at 6:45, coffee in hand, about to head in for a 7 a.m. floor review. Company-wide distribution. Subject line, Leadership Update. As Briggs Coleman enters its next phase of growth, we are pleased to announce that Justin Coleman will assume the role of Vice President of Engineering, overseeing all core product development and technical operations. Marshall Briggs will transition to a Senior Technical Advisor capacity, providing strategic guidance to the engineering leadership team. I read it 3 times. Then I adjusted my coffee cup, 3 times slow, the way I do when I'm working through something I don't have words for yet. Senior Technical Advisor. After 16 years of designing every system that made this company worth $285 million and after the predictive maintenance patent that competitors still couldn't crack. After the thermal calibration network that had prevented dozens of catastrophic failures. After every 11 p.m. phone call. Every weekend I drove 4 hours to a plant in Michigan because something wasn't right and nobody else could fix it. Senior Technical Advisor. I went straight to Gary's office. Didn't knock. He was ready for me, sitting behind his desk with that careful, neutral expression, the one that meant he'd been rehearsing this conversation. "Marshall, I understand this is a surprise." "A surprise?" "Gary, you're making your 31-year-old son my boss. A man who cannot explain how our thermal calibration system works without reading from a summary I wrote for him. 8 months ago, Gary leaned back in his chair. "Marshall, you've been in the technical trenches for 16 years. It's time to step back. Let new leadership take the wheel. You'll still have a role, a respected role. You want me to train him, make him look competent while I fade out. And then in 2 years, when he can fake it well enough, I'm gone. Early retirement, nice send-off." Good story for the press release. Gary was quiet for a moment. Then he said something I've replayed 100 times since. "Marshall, men like you build things. Men like Justin grow them. That's just how these things go. Men like you build things. Men like Justin grow them." The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a failed system. I understood then what Gary had been planning all along. I was the technical founder, the guy who did the hard work of creation. Justin was the legacy, the guy who would take credit for managing what someone else had built. I stood up. I walked to the door. I stopped with my hand on the frame. "You should have reread our partnership agreement before you sent that email." Section 7, specifically. Gary's face changed. Not anger, not fear. Recognition, like a man suddenly remembering he'd left the gas on. "Marshall," I walked out. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with 2 things in front of me. The 2008 partnership agreement and my phone. It was 10:30 p.m. I called Patricia Wells. Patricia Wells had handled my IP work for 7 years, former Navy JAG, the kind of lawyer who read every word of every document before she said anything. And when she did say something, it was worth hearing. I'd worked with her since 2017, when we needed to file our first major patent applications. She understood technical documentation because she'd spent 4 years in the Navy's legal corps dealing with classified weapons systems and nuclear reactor protocols. When I explained engineering concepts, she didn't nod politely and take notes. She asked follow-up questions that proved she understood what I was telling her. Marshall, what's happening? Gary promoted his son to VP of Engineering. I'm being moved to Senior Technical Advisor. No mutual consent, no discussion. Company-wide email sent this morning. Silence for a moment. Not the silence of someone caught off guard. The silence of someone already thinking 3 steps ahead. Section 7, she said. Yes. Another pause. Longer this time. Marshall, I need to tell you something. When Justin first joined the company last year, I pulled the 2008 agreement just to check where things stood. The original partnership agreement was never formally superseded. The IP provisions in Section 7 were never explicitly voided or transferred to the corporation, meaning your foundational designs are still licensed to Briggs Coleman, not owned by Briggs Coleman. The license is still revocable under the exact conditions that just occurred. I looked at the partnership agreement on the table in front of me. Section 7. All proprietary designs, technical architectures, and mechanical systems developed by either partner remain the individual intellectual property of the creating partner, licensed exclusively to Briggs Coleman Industrial Systems for the duration of the partnership. Should either partner's role be materially diminished without mutual consent, the affected partner retains the right to revoke said license with 90 days written notice. Patricia, I don't want to revoke the license, not yet. I want something stronger. She was quiet for a second. Patent filings. All 3 core systems filed under your name personally before the 90 days is up. And if they go through, Briggs Coleman cannot legally manufacture or sell any product built on those systems without your explicit license. And those systems are inside everything they make. I know exactly what they're inside, Patricia. I designed all of it. This will be a significant legal action. Gary will come at you hard. Let him. How long to get the paperwork ready? A week? Maybe less. Make it 4 days. I'll call you tomorrow morning. I hung up, sat at the table for a while without moving. The house was quiet. Lucas had texted earlier, just checking in the way he does every couple weeks. I hadn't responded yet. I looked at the message on my phone. Hey Dad, how's work? I typed back, fine, talk soon. Didn't mention any of it. Some things you carry alone until you know how they end. I went to work the next morning like nothing had changed. That was important. The worst thing I could do was let Gary or Justin see any sign that I was rattled. I reviewed a system spec for a client in Youngstown, signed off on a materials order, attended a standing Thursday meeting. Normal, methodical. I adjusted my desk micrometer 3 times before the meeting started, the way I always do, and focused on the work. The 90 days I had before my advisor role officially began became the most productive stretch of my career. The first thing I did was document everything. Every foundational system I'd built, traced back to the original sketches and design files. The predictive maintenance AI platform, every version from the first rough concept in 2009 to the current production spec. The modular conveyor integration system built from a problem I'd identified on a client floor in 2011 and solved over a weekend with a legal pad and a pot of coffee. The thermal calibration network, the one that made us. Every line of development logic, time-stamped, sourced, documented in obsessive detail. 71% of Briggs Coleman's entire product capability traced back directly to those 3 systems. I knew this not because I'd calculated it recently, but because I'd never stopped tracking it. You don't build something for 16 years without knowing exactly what you built. The second thing I did was quietly gauge support among the engineering staff. Not asking for anything, just listening. What I heard wasn't encouraging for Gary's transition plan. Justin had managed to alienate most of the senior engineers within his first month as VP. Roger Hayes told me privately that 3 engineers were already updating their resumes. Kid doesn't know what he doesn't know, Roger said. Yesterday, he asked me why we can't just use off-the-shelf sensors for the thermal array. I tried to explain load specifications and environmental tolerances. He cut me off and said we should think outside the box and disrupt the traditional approach. Roger had been designing precision manufacturing systems for 22 years. He'd forgotten more about thermal dynamics than Justin would ever learn. But Justin was his boss now, and Roger was expected to pretend that MBA buzzwords were equivalent to engineering expertise. Justin kept asking me for the blueprints. He came to my office 4 times in those 90 days, each time a little more impatient than the last. The encryption protocols on the original design files required my authorization to access. Without those files, he could manage the surface of the engineering department, but he couldn't touch the core systems. He knew it. I knew it. Each time he came, I told him I was still reviewing the documentation handover process. Each time he left annoyed but not yet alarmed. Then Patricia called on day 87. Marshall. All 3 patents filed. Confirmation received. Your name, sole inventor. All rights reserved. I printed the confirmation letter, folded it once, put it in the safe next to the 2008 partnership agreement. 3 days later, Justin appeared in my doorway for the 5th time, ready to hand over the blueprints, Marshall. I looked at him. No, Justin, I'm not handing over anything. I walked to the safe, turned the dial, reached in, and set the patent confirmation on the desk in front of him. 3 applications filed, time-stamped, sole inventor. Marshall Briggs. He stared at the paper. Picked it up, read it twice. What is this? That is documentation that the 3 systems at the core of every product this company manufactures belong to me personally. Licensed to Briggs Coleman Industrial Systems under our 2008 partnership agreement, a license that is now revocable given what your father did 87 days ago. You can't do this. These are company assets. They're my assets, Justin. The company had a license to use them. Go get your father. Right now, Gary arrived in 8 minutes. He'd been pulled from a client call. I could tell by the loosened tie and the flush across his face. Justin was still standing at my desk holding the patent confirmation like it was written in a language he didn't understand. Gary looked at the paper, looked at me, looked at Justin. Marshall, what the hell is this? It wasn't really a question. I handed him a folder. Inside, the patent filings, the 2008 partnership agreement with Section 7, highlighted, and a 2-page document Patricia and I had prepared. Read page 1 first. He read it standing up. His hands were steady through page 1. By page 2, they weren't. You're asking for 57% ownership. I'm asking for what reflects my actual contribution to this company. The 3 systems in those patent filings are inside every product we manufacture. Without my license, Briggs Coleman cannot legally produce or sell its core product line. Gary set the folder down, looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen from him in 16 years. Not anger, not calculation, something older and quieter. Something that looked like a man realizing the ground he was standing on wasn't as solid as he'd believed. The board will never approve this. The board will approve whatever keeps this company from becoming worthless overnight. You have 24 hours. Have your attorney call Patricia directly. If I don't hear back by tomorrow evening, I initiate license revocation and file the formal 90-day notice. After that, it goes to litigation and you spend the next 5 years explaining to clients why your flagship product line is tied up in federal court. Justin started to say something. I looked at him once. Not now, Justin. He stopped. I picked up my coffee, walked back to my desk, and sat down. Gary stood there for another few seconds. Then he took the folder, put his hand briefly on Justin's shoulder, and walked out. Justin followed without looking at me. The office was quiet. I adjusted my micrometer 3 times. Then I got back to work. Gary called Patricia at 8:30 the next morning. The board convened an emergency session that afternoon. Patricia presented the legal analysis for 45 minutes, the original agreement binding. The IP provisions never superseded. The patent filings valid, the potential exposure from license revocation incalculable. One board member asked how long it would take to rebuild the 3 core systems from scratch without my involvement. The honest answer was, you couldn't. Not in any time frame that would save the company. Not even close. They approved my terms in 18 hours. 57% ownership transferred to Marshall Briggs. Gary Coleman moved to non-executive board member, 18% stake. Justin Coleman reassigned to floor supervisor, engineering development track, structured mentorship starting the following Monday. That was 14 months ago. Revenue is up 31% since I took control. We filed 6 new patents, all built on the foundation I laid in that first leased facility outside Toledo. I promoted 4 engineers who had been overlooked for years under the old structure. All of them are outperforming their predecessor roles by margins that aren't even close. Justin finished his floor supervisor rotation 5 months ago. He's in a legitimate junior engineer position now, knows how to read a load spec, knows what it feels like to be wrong in front of people who know more than you and still have to come back the next day. He's not exceptional, but he's working honestly for the first time, and that counts for something. We had coffee last month, awkward but real. He said, "I owe you an apology for how I came into this, for acting like I'd earned something I hadn't even tried to understand." I said, "Apology accepted." "Now earn it for real." He nodded. He's trying. Gary resigned from the board 7 months ago. Consulting now, I'm told we don't speak. Some things can't be rebuilt. Some betrayals don't leave room for that. I don't carry anger about it. Anger's a weight you pay for with your own energy, and I've got better things to spend that on. Lucas comes by the plant every few weeks now. Last Sunday, he brought his girlfriend Sarah to see what his old man built. We walked the floor together, all 3 of us, machines humming with the precision that 16 years of careful engineering creates. Sarah asked good questions about the thermal calibration system. Lucas explained some of the technical details, things he'd learned during those summer jobs years ago. At one point, Sarah said, "You must be proud of what you accomplished here." I looked around at the systems running smoothly, the engineers who trusted my leadership, the company that was stronger than it had ever been. I thought about the partnerships that had failed, the relationships that had been rebuilt, and the work that would outlast all of us. "Pride's the wrong word," I said. "This isn't about pride, it's about responsibility. When you build something that keeps people safe, that creates good jobs, that solves real problems, you don't get to walk away from it just because someone else wants to put their name on it." I kept one thing from those 90 days of preparation. The patent confirmation letter, the first one filed timestamped 6:18 a.m. on a Tuesday. It's framed on the wall to the left of my desk, not as a trophy, as a reminder that what you build with your hands and your mind belongs to you. It doesn't matter what title they give you or take away. The work is the record. The work is the proof. And the man who drew the blueprints owns them, whether his name is on the door or not. Gary forgot that. He looked at 16 years of work and decided it was a resource he could reallocate. He forgot I wasn't just a partner or a useful technical asset he could reassign. I was the load-bearing wall. You can renovate around a load-bearing wall. You can paint over it, put shelves on it, pretend it's just part of the scenery. But the moment you try to remove it, the ceiling comes down. The blueprints belong to the man who drew them, always. If you spend decades building something with your own hands, make damn sure your name is on every document that proves you built it, because the moment you become inconvenient to someone else's ambition, they'll try to erase you from the history of what you created. The difference between a founder and an employee isn't the title on your business card or the size of your office. It's whether you can walk away from what you built and watch it crumble, or whether you hold the keys to keep it running.
Don't pity me. My heart doesn't need your mercy. I can still stand on my own. I was broken by your leaving, fell deeper than I thought I would. But pain has taught me how to heal now and survive what once I couldn't. You don't have to look back sadly, don't reach out with guilty hands. What you shattered made me stronger. Now I rise where I once collapsed. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll learn to breathe again. I once begged for your affection, Now I've learned my worth in scars. And the man you left in pieces found his own way through the dark. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll learn to breathe again. So keep your sympathy behind you. I don't need what's left undone. Sometimes losing who once broke you is how healing has begun. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll rise alone again. I'll rise alone again.
They say just forget. Move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen.
I've been trying to erase you from the places in my mind, but the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close, like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue, like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. If I never met you, maybe I would know just how to heal, but now every empty moment still reminds me what is real. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true.